I was driving a Lowell forklift, 40-foot boom, loading scaffoldings, hydraulic scaffolding, 40 foot in the air on YMCA schools, hospitals, Walmarts. I was traveling with him. I was packing blocks, mixing mud, setting scaffolding, cutting brick, getting it all ready for the day. Basically, I'd get there in the morning. The bricklayers would go do whatever. They would show up about 45 minutes later, but I would have all the mud mixed, all the concrete ready to go, all the bricks or stone or rock or whatever, all scaffolding up. So those bricklayers on the job, they could go. It was all about efficiency. Wow. And he taught me that at a young age, be structured, understand timing of the job. And, that was one thing. He never had people standing around. That was one thing he taught me. Right. You can always find something to do on that job.
In a corporate world where all employees have great leaders with no egos that create fun cultures where people can do their best work, the employees and companies thrive while doing great things for the customers, themselves, and each other.
Well, we know that rarely happens. I'm Jeff Palacio. I have been a leader for over 40 years for every t-shirt size company, from small 16 employees to extra large over 1 million. Please join me while I interview outstanding leaders that will share stories of great leadership and not so great. It will help you become a better leader while poking fun about all the crazy shit that happens in corporate America.
Hi, I'm Joe Deshawn, and welcome to the Corporate Couch with Jeff Palacio. Today's episode is brought to you by Palacio and Partners, providing turnkey podcast creation, hosting, production, promotion, and related creative resources for you and your business. Today, Jeff is interviewing Rusty Arnold. Rusty is the current COO and soon-to-be CEO of Frontier Forest Products. Since joining Frontier in 2015, he's become a 10% co-owner and has been instrumental in expanding the company's footprint. Rusty has been in the construction business his entire life, working with his father in the family business when he was 10 years old and managing work sites at age 13. When the buyout of Frontier Forest Products is complete in late 2025, Rusty will officially assume the role of CEO, continuing his mission of servant leadership, strong customer relationships, and steady strategic growth. Let's listen as Jeff talks to Rusty.
I believe Fiona Lynn introduced us, that powerful 4 foot, 10.5 from China, dynamite COO type person.
Dynamite is the exact word I would choose to
Yes, dynamite.
She is a go-getter.
I met her at a Panera, and she came across the room and came right up to me, almost in a sprint, and shook my hand, and we had an hour and a half conversation, kind of like what you and I did.
She's a powerhouse. She has the utmost confidence and very, very sharp lady. I've enjoyed our conversation.
This is also a first. You're the first guest that wakes up every morning thinking about wood.
It's true.
And
it's changed a little bit over the last couple years as I've grown into leadership. But boy, for many years, I got up every morning. What am I doing today, and how am I peddling wood?
There you go. We met. We had a fantastic conversation. I think we had an hour planned. We went like an hour and a half. But you've done so many different things. I love people's career journeys and where they go. But let's start with a fun question. Even if people know you fairly well, what thing would surprise them about you?
They never cease to amaze me. Read about me a little bit there, but 18 hours shy of a degree in developmental psychology. My mom's got a doctorate in psychology. Sister's got her EDS. I've always had an affinity for studying of human behavior and actions. And I just, in general, people fascinate me. I mean, they just truly do. I have a genuine want to just learn about them, what makes them tick, and find other people that are like me, that just have an insatiable drive to go out and learn, seekers of knowledge. And that's hence why I joined a Vistage group, as we spoke a little bit briefly about, but and continuous seeking of people that lift you up. More than anything. And as I get older, those dynamics change, where you start to even learn people's intentions, and you start to recognize, or what they think of you, even because they have a pessimistic mindset, maybe. And it's just kind of, you start to recognize these things. And I've been fortunate enough to be raised to go out and, learn and grow and adapt and have an open mindset and develop continuous development of skills. And just truly enjoyed that. People in general just fascinate me, bad or good. Sometimes, I have plenty to
Right.
learn from them.
I think you're a country music fan. I know you love
Oh
live
yeah.
music, but I always tell people, if you just remember this song from Billy Currington, your life will be great. His song, God is great, beer is good, and people are crazy. If you and
Resonates.
so was that an innate in you, or did you kind of was there somebody that modeled that behavior that you embraced?
So yeah, I look back and it's funny, and I don't fault my mother for what I'm getting ready to say by any means.
This is called the Corporate Couch.
Yeah,
It's a
but
therapy
when I was
session.
young, I grew up in a small town, Grove, Oklahoma, Grand Lake, and I was the wild child. I was the baby in the family, and mom and dad were older. They were kind of like done with my sister and brother, and they kind of let me just rule the roost,
Oh yeah, the
run
third one. Oh wow.
out in the country. So I threw all these parties, and my mindset was always like, just take care of my friends, take care of everybody, make sure everybody gets home safe, make sure that nothing happens to everybody, that there's no fighting, that everybody's having a good time, and being responsible in some facet. And at a young age, it was just something that kind of, not sure why, probably my dad, raised me on the job site, get it method, get after it, blah, 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 this and that. And it just, I was cleaning house, I was doing laundry, doing dishes, I was cooking, I was taking care of everybody, make sure everybody got home safe, but I had the parties. I was the one throwing them. And I think in general, it was always innate in me from a young age. I highly extroverted, even though the older I get, I have this introverted side that I've learned through therapy that, it's like you got to find a time to decompress and to sleep in your mind. And so for me, at a young age, I just enjoyed that. And where I was going with my mother, she was mad at me because she's like, we're just partying. I'm like, no, but I enjoy people, Mom. I enjoy helping and learning. And it was something that I don't think she understood. And as we've gotten older and talked to her, she's like, I can see and understand that now and why you do what you do.
Right.
Everybody has different paths. There's the studious, not outgoing. They're great. They're achievers. I think we're all achievers in our own right, and sometimes it's not recognized. As my mom didn't see that. I just enjoyed people. I wanted to learn about people. And, sometimes you don't get paid for that. Sometimes you do.
Right. What was the craziest thing that ever happened at one of your parties?
Oh, I probably can't speak to those two out loud. I'll give you one story that you'll crack up. I was having the graduation party. I wrestled in high school and in college, and so I knew people all over the state of Oklahoma. And I was inviting everybody. I mean, just phone call after phone call. I had numbers. I was calling, hey, you should come up. You should come up. Wound up having about 400 people at this graduation party in the middle of 200 acres on Grand Lake on our farm, mile and a half lane to get to our farmhouse. Big gazebo in the front yard, 3 acres, and everybody's just having a heyday. And the house is locked. I'm not letting anybody go in the house unless you got to use the restroom. You got to find me. If you're a guy, find somewhere in the woods.
Right.
So anyway,
what a great way to meet young ladies.
Yeah. So long story short, it all goes off, has a great time. Everybody's gone. Well, I'm mowing the yard, weed eating, power washing the deck, power washing the house, picking up, hauling stuff off, cleaning the entire property up the next morning. And I was always an early riser and just get after it. My dad taught me that, just get up and go and get busy. Don't lay around. And so anyways, I'm an early morning person for that reason. My mom and dad get home that evening and they're like, what happened to our Christmas tree, old pine tree out that goes up and down the side of the road? And I was like, what are you talking about? Dually tracks right over it, just plowed over it.
Oh, wow.
They were just kind of like, having me out here. I was just kind of like, well, I may have had a few people, but I apologize. I'll go replan it. One of my buddies just may have not been paying attention.
Oh, jeez. So they had no idea there was 400 people.
No. I mean, they knew I had some parties, but it was very, they knew I was being responsible, taking care of stuff, and they trusted me.
Yeah.
Wrong or right, because it was illegal. We were underage, but I guess it's better. And that's a hard line to balance. There's people that I don't believe in it, and I'm going to fight it till you're 21. There's people that they're going to do it, and I'm going to make sure they're being responsible, and I don't think either one of them's right or wrong. I've seen both negative and positive cases in both sides, but my mother and father's approach. But anyway, yeah, that was always a good one. They still bring that up. Norfolk Pine got ran over by some kids.
Love it. So you shared with me that you started working for your dad's construction company at 10 and you were independently managing job sites at 13. Talk about that.
I was. My dad was, God bless his soul, he's been gone for about 3 years now, but raised a little different. My dad and I didn't see a lot eye to eye as I got older, and great empathetic human being. Loved him for that, and he loved people. That's probably where I got my affinity as well. He owned a bar and grill in his last few years, and just loved just to be the center of attention, talk with everybody, blah blah blah. But his construction company, he was school of hard knocks. I mean, it was the get it method. There were no breaks. It was, you got 30 minutes lunch, get your butt back to work, and they were there at 6 and done by 2:30. And he had some backwood, redneck, crazy people that are no longer on this earth that worked for him, and I was raised somewhat by. And as I got older, I just started recognizing, like, this is not the path I want in life. But it gave me a work ethic that will rival most people. And to just my favorite statement is the get it method. Just get it and get it done. Don't waste time. Don't sit there. And as you get older, you start to learn how to navigate that statement. Making sure that you're being smart about things, good decisions, that you're, doing your due diligence, being detail oriented. A lot of times he made me go back and redo whatever I did that I was in a hurry to get done. And so by the time I was 13, I was driving a Lowell forklift with a 40-foot boom, loading scaffoldings, hydraulic scaffolding, 40 foot in the air on YMCA schools, hospitals, Walmarts. I was traveling with him, jails in Columbus, Kansas. Like, I was packing blocks, mixing mud, setting scaffolding, cutting brick, getting it all ready for the day. Basically, I'd get there in the morning. The bricklayers would go do whatever. They would show up about 45 minutes later, but I would have all the mud mixed, all the concrete ready to go, masonry, all the bricks or stone or rock or whatever, all scaffolding up. So those bricklayers on the job, they could go. It was all about efficiency. Wow. And he taught me that at a young age, be structured, understand timing of the job. And, that was one thing. He never had people standing around. That was one thing he taught me. Right. You can always find something to do on that job that can improve the job and create, efficiencies on the job. And so 13, I'm out there on a forklift, getting after it on a job site. And it was kind of a start of my career from a work ethic standpoint. And, his statement to me was, when you got a chance to work and make money, boy, you take it. Some people look at that. It sounds about right from who he was. But I've been working since I was itty bitty every summer. I didn't get holidays. I was working spring break. I was working Christmas break. Any fall break, I was working. I liked money. I like to be able to do things. So.
Yeah. Interesting. So Rusty, obviously strong work ethic. I mean, finding every opportunity to make money work, early riser, which I can relate to since I've been a child. I've been an early riser. But what was fun for you growing up? Did you do any fun things?
I grew up in the country. Kind of like I said earlier, that was the one thing my therapist pointed out to me was I would get home from work at 3:00 and I would just disappear in the woods. Like I would be fishing. I'd be blowing things up with fireworks or shooting stuff. We had a 2,000 acre dairy farm around our 200 acres on the lake. And to me, that was decompressing. And I didn't realize at a young age, but that was me after working hard all day and putting in 8 hours like a crazy man. That was my decompression. And I didn't understand that at a young age till somebody pointed that out. And I just loved it. That was my fun. And then once dark hit, I would wind up in town with my buddies, reset, ready to go and have a good time at night with a bunch of our friends. Whatever we were was probably wrong. But for me, I've always enjoyed the country. That's still my piece. Hiking, traveling, I was recently in Whistler, BC, and I went 3 days of just hiking off and on. My wife was in work, and I seen black bears. I went golfing by myself on the Trent Jones golf course. Like, it's just, to me, there's nothing more invigorating that resets the body than being out in Mother Nature. And so that was what was fun to me. And a lot of people that have lived in the city or grown up don't understand that. And it's something that just, you see it online, but until you live it and understand it and feel that euphoria of being with Mother Nature out in the country and hiking and seeing animals that have 10 times your sense, or smarter than you when it comes to awareness in the woods, and having that capability. It's just unique, and I've always enjoyed that, and that's something that I try to get out and do quite often.
I love that, and I know I believe you walked on the Oklahoma State University's wrestling team, and you were into martial arts as in your younger days, and little golf, and I know you do yoga also. Like that's more of the kind of passive, mindful sports, I'll say, or
Yeah.
fitness activities. What was the big change in terms of you going into that space from more of the aggression sports like martial arts and wrestling?
Well, I've always been an advocate for, working out. I think is good for anybody. I believe some sort of stress on your body and your heart and pushing yourself is good. It helps keep the blood flowing. It helps, clear the mind. It reduces the energy of frustration that you might have. And as a kid, I had a lot, a lot of energy. And my mom got me in Warang Do, which is just another form, of martial arts as a kid, and I loved it. And then I got into wrestling, and then in wrestling high school, a guy was traveling to Brazil, owned a big construction company, and he was training with the Gracies. And he would come back and work with me in the evenings after wrestling practice. I started doing jiu-jitsu, and I just loved it and utilization of it. Obviously, it was a challenge because wrestling, you don't want to be on your back. Well, in jiu-jitsu, you're on your back. And so I
Right.
learned how to maneuver around if I was on my back, how to get up from under it without, at that point in time, 30 years ago, refs didn't understand jiu-jitsu. That was in the early mid 90s, and nobody, but I could use some things that would get me off my back in a hurry, leverage.
Right.
And so I just had a fondness for that and that activity. I just loved the hand-to-hand combat at that point. I didn't want to go out and fight. I had no desire to do that. I was a lover. I enjoyed people. I wanted to have fun and learn about people, but if it ever came to it, it was something at least I could handle myself. And I've been in very, very few fights. I want to make clear, but that's the last thing I think anybody needs. I think we can all find something in common sometimes, and I think it just takes a little bit of time to work through that emotional, aspect to find that.
Right.
Once we do, it settles those aggressional reactions. But I just kept up with it. I enjoyed it. It was what let out all that stress, that frustration, that anger, whatever, that I just had a lot of energy, pent up energy. And so, got a scholarship to go to Lindenwood and wrestle year, found out East St. Louis is probably not for a country boy from Oklahoma pretty quick. And did my year there. It was a hard lesson learned, just I ran as fast as I could from high school and from my family and wanted to get as far as away my first year and experience life. And
East St. Louis from where you grew up, it probably was a major
huge. I was this country boy, so lack of knowledge of what city life, specifically East St. Louis city life, was like. I was just eye-opening, and the education and grow at that point in time, compared to Olathe Northwest or some of these better school districts, it was tough. I had dyslexia. It never was until I was older, basically kind of found out I had that. My youngest daughter has it, and so it's been really good to really relive that. I have a greater understanding, getting her help, and I can't thank Olathe school districts enough for IEP programs, Barton's method, just people that are there to support and help her overcome that, where I had to develop coping mechanisms and, shut down and not talk or, in class. And so that's something that is also important to me, is helping kids, seeing that, it's okay. You can ask questions, and there's a lot of things and have experience that they don't know.
I've interviewed so many people with dyslexia on the podcast, and literally, and especially lately. And there was this one founder of a company, and he said in high school and junior high, how everybody reads a paragraph, and you go, and he would count how many kids, before him, and he would start and count and knew what paragraph he had to read and start just trying to read it, wasn't listening to anybody else reading their stuff because he was this, so, oh my God, I'm going to, and it's so interesting.
I've tried reading, and it just, I can get about 10, 20 pages in and my mind's somewhere
Yeah.
else. And so I have found podcasts and audiobooks to be the greatest thing ever, because when I'm in my truck traveling, I can sit back and auditorily listen to all that. And if the mind starts wandering,
Right.
switch it to music, because I'm
Yeah.
done. Once I'm ready to listen again, or certain times of the day when I'm kind of
Yeah.
capable of focusing, I'm back to an audiobook or podcast.
Yeah.
I've learned that I am truly a lot more auditorily capable of understanding and listening and retaining than to read.
Yeah.
I can see things and remember on pictures, places I've been, vivid as can be, but tell you I read 6 months ago or part of the book, I couldn't even tell you.
Right. Yeah. Rusty, talk about you're 18, graduate high school, kind of what's that next journey look like for you?
I think the hardest thing for me was, I shouldn't say hard, it was just, learning curve and understanding the next dynamic in your future. Wrestling was always that part. I was wrestling 6 to 9 months out of the year, and it was all I did was eat, breathe, sleep, that, jiu-jitsu. Started doing some Muay Thai in college for fun for about a year, just wanted to learn. And but that all being said, I had no clue. All I had done is work for my dad's construction company.
Right.
I had silversmith for Neiman Marcus, a guy that did jewelry, odd jobs here and there. I was just trying to figure out where I was going, and I wasn't geared for college. I can look back and actually absolutely say that without, I wasn't. But that was,
and I think it's much more acceptable now.
Yes.
Not acceptable, but there's that was you graduate high school, you go to college, you go get a job,
and it just wasn't.
Get married, have kids, buy a house, whatever.
It was tough. I as I said, I failed out my first year, came back to NEO, Northeastern Oklahoma A&M, got my associates, and then walked on at Stillwater, did a year there, had a kid, and then was doing some online stuff and like shy of my degree. But, I started working in the lumber yards because that was what I knew. I knew construction. And I was like, hey, I understand this. I'll just work at these places to generate some income while I'm in school. And what I found was my constant curiosity of like, how are they doing it? What are they doing? What's the contractor doing? What's he building? Who's delivering this site? How do you sell this? How do you learn how to do the math on lumber? Board footage. It was just this constant curiosity and drive to excel in that industry. And what I found was, it's like, obviously I could sell ice to an Eskimo. I learned at a young age, and it was like, okay, well, why don't I just go into sales and home building? Work my way up to that. And so I just kept going and going. The thing about me is I'd been on both sides, so I kind of understood the contractor side as well as the lumberyard. And so that gave me a little bit of a leg up to have a conversation around, well, when are you going to do this? When are you going to do that? So I can plan to do this versus them telling me. It kind of gave me a leg up. And I knew how to read blueprints, figure jobs, product needs. And so also have conversations with the framers around what they're using, where they could save money to help the builder, and just kind of stay ahead. So once I kind of started that path, I never really looked back. And I had a kid. I needed to be a father, and I'd separated from the mother, bad relationship. Sometimes there's those situations where two people bring out the worst in each other, and there's those situations where you're in the right marriage and they bring out the best in each other. And it just unfortunately was the first one there. So basically, I just kept continuing to work my way up through the industry. I was working for True Value in Miami, Oklahoma. I'd been separated a little over a year. I bought a house. I was, trying to be a better father, focus on my career. And my wife now, who I had met in high school, she had family had a lake house, but she was from Kansas City. The studious type, very smart lady, and she was finishing her last year in law school, and we just reconnected, and it's pretty much all she wrote. We were going back and forth, and I knew that she was never going to come to Miami, Oklahoma, which was a fairly impoverished town in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And where BF Goodrich used to be and left in the 80s, and left the town of 12,000 with 3,000 people unemployed. So anyways, I moved to Tulsa to 84 Lumber, and moved in with a high school friend of mine I grew up with, and Tiff finished law school, moved there. Anyways, I did the 84 stint for about 3 years, selling builders, track builders, specialty home builders, everything. I just was growing and learning the industry on a national level scale, actually. What I learned real quickly was builders are a different breed. There's not a lot of loyalty. they don't quite understand supply chain or the mechanism of, I can't go build a load and have it out to you at 6 a.m. when you call me at 9 o'clock at night. And then you're mad at me for not doing that. I'm like, you should have been ahead and thought of this 2 days ago. The stress, the lack of appreciation, the lack of understanding, I just was done. And I'd done well at 84. I'd grown to be a top 50 salesman for the company nationwide. I was selling 12, 15 million a year. I wanted to get to an area where people understood and were more respectful, and distribution behind the scenes, behind the general public, wholesale was an opportunity arose up here. I applied for it at Robertson Dibdall and got the job and moved up and lived with my wife's parents for about 6 months before she got up here and got her job. And that was pretty much.
What was that like?
It was, her dad called me his roommate, and her parents are amazing. I love, they're wonderful humans and have been nothing but supportive of me, my wife, our family, and just really good people.
How big of the parties did you throw at their house?
Didn't throw any there. I think I was hopefully past that part of my life at some point. I can't remember when, but.
And did your future wife ever attend one of your parties when in high school?
Are you drowning in boring corporate communications? Palacio and Partners is here to rescue you. We transform internal podcasts from snooze fest to must-listen content that actually connects your team and strengthens your culture. Imagine podcast episodes that make your employees laugh while staying informed. Our founder, Jeff Palacio, doesn't just create podcasts, he creates conversations that break through the noise. Whether you're a growing startup or a massive corporation, we turn your company's story into audio gold. Leadership becomes human. Remote teams feel connected. Your message cuts through the clutter. Palacio and Partners, where corporate communications gets a fun makeover. Let's make your podcast work harder than your email inbox ever could. Jeff is happy to share his insights on podcasting with you. You can contact him via LinkedIn or schedule a Zoom call via the link in the episode description.
And did your future wife ever attend one of your parties when in high school?
She did, actually. Funny as it is. Her and a couple of her friends did come to a few of the parties I had in high school.
There you go.
And she was...
that old bathroom key trick.
Oh, yeah.
The house, so you can use the bathroom. Yeah, there you go.
She was, like I said, that studious... we were opposite ends of the spectrum back to school, but it's funny. You look back and you goes, there was something I recognized in her that I needed and I wanted to be a better person and to settle down and become an individual that focused on his career and growth and established a future. And she had already learned that at a young age, I think. So it was something I'm going, well, I probably need that in my life, and didn't understand at that age. And, I want to thank the man above. I think he places things in our lives sometimes that,
absolutely,
we don't recognize, but later we go, that was something I needed. It was good for me. But moved up here, started that path. And that was pretty much the turning point in my life, recognizing there's so much out there. I have a lot to learn. I was at 27, I think, and 28 maybe. And it was just, the company was a 60-year-old company. I was just going, oh my gosh, there's so much to learn here. And I can make so much money. I can become one of the top traders in the company. I'm going to be known all over the United States and Canada, east, west, western part of the country and the southeast part of the country, and get familiar with, different people from different regions. And it was just eye-opening. And that kind of started my path in my career, and I really enjoyed that. It was kind of a flop. I've always explained in the retail, I was dealing with 80% people that maybe didn't quite understand supply chain, didn't understand pricing mechanisms, didn't understand region specific products. And there was just so much to that. And it was just like, I was dealing with 80% of people that just mad, frustrated, yelling at me because of lack of understanding. And I was dealing 20% professional. I'm cautious to say a certain term, but lack of knowledge people. And when I got to the distribution, it was a complete flop. I'm dealing with 80-90% people that get it, understand it, and the conversations were easy. It was, people that I was going, this guy's really smart. He understands currency exchange and all these things and teach me. And so it was just eye-opening, and it was probably just truly, again, what set me on my path. And within 6 years, I was, from 25 traders in that company, 8 locations through the Midwest, I was top 3 And unfortunately, the owner didn't have any kids that want anything to do the business, so he sold out to Cedar Creek, who had been bought by Charles Bank, big fund, in 2011, but a 30-year-old company. And I had a lot of respect for Clark, who had founded the company, and I just decided, as I was, I'm going to give it a shot. And where I'm at now at Frontier, Keith and Woody had approached me, but I said I wanted to give Cedar Creek an opportunity. Went into it with open mind. Within 14 months, I kind of recognized, the writing on the wall. It was just getting set up to sell. It was all about financial engineering. It wasn't about true profit and operational profits. And so for me, it was just like, they're not here for the long haul. They're the 5-10 guys at the top, just getting their money and they're out. And,
Right.
But I had to keep an open mindset of like, what can I learn while I'm here? What opportunities, bad or good, what I shouldn't do, because I knew at some point I was going to leave. It just was a matter of when, and either start my own company or be in the process of that with somebody else. I learned a lot of things I won't do, things I want to do, some reporting that brought a lot of insight to the forefront, and maybe how the report was brought to the forefront. Well, that's inaccurate information. I'm very much a person of like accurate data. If we're going to do it, let's do it with accurate data. And there was just a lot of stuff I saw that I disagreed with, and complacency, margin gaps where people didn't understand. They just, I want this. Like, yeah, but they're not making money there. Just because it's high margin doesn't mean they're making money. Cost of doing that is a much higher cost. And it was just falling on deaf ears. And so, anyways, I made a phone call to Keith and Woody, the founders of Frontier, where I'm at now, and asked if they still had interest. I'd love to visit. And that was kind of, I came here in September 15, never looked back. They were a $14 million revenue company. We went anywhere from 60 to 140 million over the last 10 years, depending on the market conditions. But we did grow from one location to 4 locations, and we recently shut down one in Wichita. Found it just to be not as beneficial or profitable. We can ship things out of Kansas City and support that region, that area of the state. Anyway, through all that, it was kind of the succession plan. They didn't really have any kids involved. And in 2020, I became a 5% owner. 21, I became a 10% owner. And I'm in the process of buying. Woody retired in 21. Keith is still at the helm, and we're in the process of buying him out now as we speak. And hopefully look to have that closed sometime in the next 2 to 3 months here.
Wow, great.
I've enjoyed this industry. They're fascinating people. It's an industry you can still do a lot of things on a handshake. I am seeing some changes, as we spoke of, where with the crazy acquisitions, mergers, big companies, it's hard to build relationships or get in front of somebody. Email, I think, is a great thing, but it's kind of like I made a post on LinkedIn recently about utilization of technology, AI. And I think people are missing, and Simon Sinek said this, that human connection is the utmost importance. And I'm seeing that disappear in our industry, and it's scary. And obviously business, you adapt and you grow and you evolve, but I truly believe that human communication is always and will be, no matter what, at the center of any business, industry, anywhere. And it's concerning because you can't even talk to people. You can't, I develop a gut instinct by talking to the mills and my customers so that it helps me go buy better, buy smarter, sell smarter, help them make more money. And everything's just done with a click of a button or an email. And it's like, guys, I get we can accomplish more, but a 5-minute phone conversation is not going to distract you from the rest of your day. It's just going to help you. It's going to benefit you. And so,
yeah, it's so interesting because I have a friend that's worked for all forms of Nabisco for 40 something years, still working, and now it's Mondelez. But he talks about he's always giving these grocery store owners tickets to sporting events and tickets to concerts at T-Mobile Center here in Kansas City, and he goes, the lack of human connection, meaning like they're not grateful for the tickets. They don't say thank you. They want more tickets. Hey, can I get 4 more? And it's like the worst part of his job. The other place I see that, and I think it's been going on for, 10, 12 years, is people, the finalists of interview, candidates that interview for one position, there's let's say there's 5 to 6 finalists. They go through 30 to 50 hours of preparation and interviewing and things like that. And they either get ghosted or they get a templated email that says they didn't get the job. And to me, it's like, look, the best phone call you can make, Rusty, is call Jeff. Jeff, here's the offer. We're going to do great things together, blah, 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 start date. Love that call. It's the best call ever, right? New team member. Let's do it. The 5 other people that didn't get the job, you got to pick up the phone. It's a 2 to 3 minute conversation and just call them and say, you didn't get the job. And here's why. Wish you the best of luck. Keep in touch, whatever it is, right? Because all the time they invested. So if you're the best company to work for, great. That one person that got the job, fantastic. They're in the best company to work for. The other 5 think your company sucks.
Yeah.
Because you ghosted them, or an HR templated email, saying, we went another direction or whatever. Like, come on.
Yeah. It's hard these days, and from both sides. It's I just, since 08, and even all around, I call it the, age of the info, era of info, where people can hide behind an email or a text or whatever. And it's just, that's tough. And it's scary. I hope that we can be the change. I see a lot of people on social media that are trying to be that change. And I hope that I'm making an effort to be that change with my company, that we make phone calls. When there's a miscommunication on an email, pick up the phone. Don't continue 100%. To banter back in an email. Pick up the phone, for Christ's sake. It's like, this is not we're just creating more conflict and frustration. And heading that off is such a key move, I think, in any industry, in any situation. Have the conversation and seek to understand. Yeah. Don't seek to be right. I see that more than not. It's
or text, like, the technology behind texting is called SMS, short messaging services. Like, it's not for, solving like world problems or bad mouthing somebody or trying to, you got to talk to somebody.
If you're going to have a conversation, I'll get an occasional text that's this long, 75, 100 words. And I'm just going, you couldn't pick up the phone. That conversation would have been much simpler. I'm just like, I'll call. I'm like, I don't have time to text. Right. I'm driving or I'm working. What is going on, and what do we need to do to solve this situation or find a solution?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, that obviously, as today's generation, they're the generation entering workforce that have had technology since a young age. Right. Mm-hmm. And they're also came through COVID and went to school during COVID, so that they got a little shell shocked, and I think their human connection skills got impacted by it, whatever you want to say.
Absolutely.
So, it is a challenge, but that's where leadership development and really people development come in. And I think it's the man, my development as whether personally or professionally is, I own it. Right. But if I work for, or somebody works for me, what I tell them, look, you own it 51%, I'm 49%. So you tell me you have to do some work yourself. And then my work is to help you get where you want to be in whatever way that is, introductions, holding back budget for, training or whatever it is. Though. But a lot of companies don't think that way anymore, I think. And a lot of leaders don't think that way, which is unfortunate.
That's something I strive. I think the hardest thing with anything is where do our attentions lie? And my happiness comes from helping other people achieve, take it back a step there. Like, I have this thing I designed and call the web of success. And there's no 2 spider webs the same, is the simplest way to explain it. Every spider builds his own web. And, small, large, he's there to catch critters, insects. It's the same philosophy. I look at it, utilizing that statement. Every employee I have is developing his own web of success. My job is to throw tools that stick in that web that he can use to build a stronger web to grow his success. Each one's going to use those strengths, weaknesses, those tools differently. I continuously try to hone those, help them understand them, help them see, what more they can be doing and or different options or different perspectives, and hope that enlightens them and that they can use that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that's their web. They're going to design it how they see fit, what works for them. And we all think, to the point talking about dyslexia and non-dyslexia people, we think differently. We see the world differently. I use data differently to make a gut instinct, and vice versa. And so I think the more tools and opportunities they have in front of them, they're just going to be better off. And at the end of the day, for me, what brings me pure happiness, as you asked kind of earlier, outside of being in the country where I reset, but also to see people succeed because of the tools I gave them. And we call it the web of success. It takes anywhere from 2 to 5 years to truly build that web. And about the 5th year where we see a proficiency point, that's where that web is just firing all cylinders. Tools are in line. Everything is structured. Everything's organized. That web is solid. It's like with anything, they're utilizing that every day. They're like, okay, I need that today. I need this today. And it just, to me, I believe in that model, and it brings me happiness to see the people that take it and run with it.
So is it a formalized training program? Rusty would explain the kind of that.
It's not. It's something that I'm still working on.
Okay.
Obviously, we're all work in progress. I'm relatively young.
It's a journey, not a destination.
You got it. And, it's hard to put a structured pathway on that because, again, everybody's different. But if I can continue to reiterate to them, like, hey, I'm giving you another tool. Hey, this is, have you thought about this? And that's where even myself, continuously learner and seeker of knowledge in Vistage and other people I've met, yourself.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that for me, I'm asking the right questions of them so that they can be critical thinkers versus just telling them. And
100%.
So,
yeah. And, it's a whole thing about getting the right people on the bus. And, part of that is, you care about them as a person and where they want to go. So if they decide their next step is not on the bus, it's fine. You want to help them get to another bus wherever, where they want to go, because you want people that are committed and want to be with you and achieving the goals and have fun doing it.
We all have different, goals. And if the goals for the company aren't aligning with you, that's okay. I'm not mad at you.
Right.
As long as you're a good person, a good human, and trying and working to better yourself.
Yeah.
I'm supportive. And, I think we're all hopeful that somebody, good people are going to be on our team. But sometimes just being a role model and support anybody, no matter what direction, I've found that there's people that just aren't a fit for the lumber industry. There's people I wouldn't be a fit for certain other industries or certain jobs. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I believe we're all trying to find our path in life. And, there was a percentage statement thrown out years ago, and it still sticks with me and kind of memory is, and I think I may have said this to you in our discussion, 3% of people truly find what absolutely they love, that invigorates them, that just brings out the best in them. I'm still somewhat of a believer of that. And if I can help those grow that percentage, then that's brings me true joy. I hope that we can continue, and that's the, hopefully have a podcast with school districts and stuff, but
so one of the things is, I just read Chase Jarvis's Never Play It Safe, and I've been highly recommending that book to people. I think Chase Jarvis runs around with the Seth Godins, the Tim Ferrisses of the world, the Ryan Holidays, kind of that clique of intellectuals. I really think it describes really the future of work and how inner peace, meditation, bringing play, we don't do things like you really like to go out and, hike in nature, but sometimes you won't do that because you're like, oh, I got this, and this.
Yeah.
But hiking in nature is going to make you better at those other things. So you may do them faster or whatever it is, because it's going to, bring you joy. And there's other pillars in there, but I'm fascinated by the book because I love building great cultures, and I prided myself with building a culture where people can do their best work, have fun, do great things together, right? And I think that's what any leader would want to do. And you talked about that one company that was just looking at wanting to sell, and I would always ask why wouldn't every CEO want their company to be the best company to work for? Well, your example, is one reason that they're not there to build a business. They're not there to make it a great culture. They're there to make it money for themselves because they want to sell, which is fine.
Sure.
But I think you have to be transparent with that.
Yeah.
And because you're going to attract a certain group of people, and sometimes you can't be transparent. You don't want to be, because you're not going to attract people, because people are like, oh, you're going to sell. Like, why would I want this job unless, with some kind of promotion? So, it's a very interesting dynamic, but I think, with COVID, it accelerated the need for, a different type of, obviously, work environment. And it's just, and I think, there's some jobs you have to be in the office. I mean, but the companies that 100% return to work when they don't have to be, like if you're in IT or, market, I think it's crazy. And people are like refusing to actually work for the companies that are requiring that today.
Yeah. So, there's a give and take and a push and pull. And I struggle with all that because, in the beginning I was like, well, if they can accomplish their job at home, but what I've learned is, and the lack of camaraderie or capability to speak with people face to face, to walk into an office and say, hey, what do you think about this versus an IM? Like with anything, you're expressing your everything when you're talking to somebody is going to give a lot more to just what you're saying. Yeah. And I think it's hard for me from a productivity standpoint, and it's not just about the work productivity. It's about the knowledge gain productivity for later usage for growth. Whether I say that right, kind of, I think the meaning stands for itself there. I just find it to be a lot more productive when everybody's in the office. We communicate, we bounce ideas off each other, we move quicker, we move more efficient, we move more effectively. We see things that maybe we wouldn't see we were all at home. So for me, and this isn't for everybody, again, I just feel that we are capable of doing more together in the office than away. And
and I think it's also the culture. So there's a company in Kansas City, one of the best companies to work for, and they have a very flexible work policy where you can work, but they have some kind of crazy number, like 85% of their employees, I think they're around 170 employees, come to the office, the ones that are in Kansas City.
Yeah.
So because the culture's good.
Yeah.
So they want to come in. So I think you want the flexibility for somebody to obviously attend a child's school play or, the normal stuff, or they want to work remote because they're going to take a long weekend and go to, Grand Lake or beautiful Shell Knob, Missouri, and on Table Rock Lake. But, you just got to be open to it and what fits best for you and as a leader. But the thing is, you're building that culture where people want to do that. And yes, I agree. Like I bump into somebody, because I take the steps from the first floor to the 8th floor and somebody else does. I run in and we have a conversation, which doesn't happen,
I think you're doing your job, but you're hindering your capability to learn, and that's, to me, we should be striving to learn everything we can every day. And I think as a leader these days, that's becoming increasingly even more of a challenge, because you're managing multiple generations, how they work with each other. You're managing work from home in the office. You're navigating an ever-changing industry or industries where self-interest is becoming more prevalent. And how do you navigate that and work around that in business that's evolving at such a rate with the new technology and AI? And I just can't. It's a challenge, I think, with anybody. And
I think it's the hardest time to be a leader, in corporate America. I mean, because all the things you just said, and we had a brief discussion about, leading a multi-generational workforce, because no one in the history of the U.S. and corporate America has had to manage this many different generations, from baby boomers to Gen Z. I think we're at. I like to know the people that name these generations, but anyhow.
Well, the other thing, I think it's unfortunate. When I said the self-interest piece, it's like we've lost our way. And I don't understand this, and this is one I'm really trying to have a greater understanding for. And I've listened to Jim Collins' From Good to Great book. And it's like we've, even though we see margins and everybody on the internet thinks they know everything about something because they read an article or saw it where they haven't had 30 years of experience around it. This illusion that, well, I saw that, I know more about it than you, I can have a conversation, go to my doctor's office. Well, I did a ton of research. About what?
Right.
And it just, everybody knows everything. And it's the self-interest where you just can't get people to be open-minded. They know more than you than you're about than your job. And
Right.
it's becoming increasingly difficult to talk to people and try to help them make money. And it's gotten to a point, nobody wants anybody to be prosperous. It's like, you're making too much money. I'm sitting there going, dude, you don't know what my overhead is. You don't know what my costs are. You don't know what I pay my people.
Right.
You don't know what is going on behind the scenes. You haven't ran my company for 20 years and seen the changes in the industry. And where I was going with that was with Jim Collins, margins have gotten thinner, though cash piles may be bigger, but margins have gotten thinner. And I'm not an all margin guy, but it still has an impact on the business in some facets,
Sure.
Overhead costs and so forth. It's just, we want to beat everybody down to nothing. We want something for nothing. And I'm a proponent of, like, if somebody's asking for something, obviously I've done my due diligence. I kind of know where the market should be. If they're not crazy out of line, if I like the individual, I'm probably going to do business with the individual. It's not about the money. It's about, the relationship. It's about how they're going to handle the future, relationships and business and so forth and so on. And if they're going to bring, knowledge to me that, hey, I think the market's doing X, Y, and Z, I think it might be a good time to buy, I'm going to survive. That's fine. But getting even mills on everybody just wants volume. They don't care anymore. It's just, how much are you bringing to the table? I'm like, well, I'm a small business in the Midwest that has 2 million people, call it 4 million people between Kansas, Missouri, and Kansas City. And I'm sitting there going, I'm not a Dallas that has 5 million people, and then the whole state of Texas has 20 million. I'm like, I can't just buy the way they do, or I'm going to be sitting on mountains. And there's this lack of understanding and partnership in business these days. I still think some good ones exist, but understanding the region, your customer's customer base, their needs, so that you can help them. It's just it's a me attitude, and I don't know where that's came from, but I'm seeing it in a lot of industries and a lot of businesses where they just don't care anymore about their customer being profitable, and so that they have a future and a long-term relationship with them. It's there'll be another one statement. I'm like, okay, I'm not treating my employees bad. I'm not being mean to you. I'm not fighting. I want a partnership.
Right.
And I think that's suffering in today's world as well.
Yeah, totally agree. Rusty, I love helping two groups of people on the podcast with advice from great leaders like yourself. One is that, I used to say college graduate, but I think, today's world, maybe, if you're between 18 and 22 or 25 and you just graduated high school or college, what advice do you have for them as they begin their kind of professional career journey and obtain that first professional job?
Be open-minded. Don't think you know it all. Seek to learn, seek to understand. Don't seek to be right. Stay active. You're young, you've got energy. That's going to come out in certain ways, and be recognizable of that. Understand what's going on with your body, what's going on with who you are, and how you can navigate that is by talking to some older, peoples that have experienced knowledge and being open to that. And I just, in general, I wish that younger generation, and I am seeing a change in that. I'll be frank with some of the younger generation. My daughter is 22, my nephew's 23. Whether that's me being biased and raising them, but they're seekers. They love to talk. They love to learn. If you're closed-minded, you're just getting online and looking and saying, well, I know it now. Well, just because you saw it online, it's Chat GPT, Copilot, it's all these Perplexity, it's all the AIs that you can go in and learn. But my favorite movie is with Robert, he passed away, committed suicide, but Williams and Matt Damon, and I can't think of the name, but
Good Will Hunting.
They're sitting in the park bench, and he says, you're the smartest guy, you've read everything in the book, but have you ever set foot in the 16th chapel and actually looked up at that, or loved a woman or a man, whatever? You don't know. You have no clue what that's like until you've experienced it and went through the steps and actually been there. You can't just read the book and assume you know it all.
Right.
I think that's the hardest thing going to college. Well, I did this. I know that now. And it's like, no, there's still millions of experiences out in this world. So be open to experiences. Be open to learning. You don't know it all. and seek to understand, I think would be the key things that I would
Yeah.
tell that generation.
Yeah, I think, lifelong learning and curiosity are two things that'll take you far.
Yeah.
The next group, Rusty, is that, not everybody needs to have people reporting to them to be a leader. Anyone could be a leader in a company. But those that choose that path and become first-time managers, have people reporting to them, what advice do you have for them as they begin that leadership journey?
Oh,
We can go on another
yeah.
20, 30 minutes.
In that one there, I think you have to, the only way you're going to be a true significant leader is having an open mindset and choosing to continue to learn, seeking to understand. Probably that's the most profound with any generation, seeking to understand. And how can we communicate, with my kids, my wife, I'll pick up the phone and say, I love you. I see her, I tell her I love her. I tell my kids I love them, but I also send them texts middle of the day, hey, love you, proud of you, kid. I think when somebody knows somebody's proud of them, it instinctively builds drive because they want to see themselves continue to do better and do more. And I think, to me, that's that part of how do I communicate? Well, with my kids, I do it this way. With my wife, I do it that way. We're going to have to learn to communicate various ways with generations. My partner, 70 years old, he doesn't talk about things he wants. He wears everything closed in. It's hard to get him to talk and be vulnerable. Whereas the younger generation, they're pretty much vulnerable, as we've learned, And so I think with things, just be open-minded and seek to learn, to understand, be curious of the people, your employees. How can you help them be better and build a better foundation for their future? You've built one, help them build one.
Right. Yeah. Rusty, thanks so much for coming on the Corporate Couch. I'm so grateful that Fiona Lynn introduced us, and I look forward to our next conversation offline.
Jeff, thank you. I can't appreciate it being the first one. I've really enjoyed these conversations, and again, I could probably sit here and talk till 1 o'clock in the afternoon with you. So I greatly appreciate it, and enjoy the heat in the lake.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Take care.
I really like Rusty. I think, just his work ethic, being at a construction job site at 10 years old.
10 years old, yeah.
At his father's construction company and managing construction sites at 13. Talk about work ethic. And I loved that he was the youngest, I think, of 5. So by the time he came along, like his parents didn't care what he did. I'm being facetious a little bit, but when you're throwing high school parties for 400 people, it's I wish I knew when I was in high school.
I didn't know 400 people then. I couldn't.
Well, he wrestled throughout the state, so he met people all through the state.
So every wrestler in the whole state came to his parties or something.
Well, yeah, and how the house was locked up, so people had to ask him for the key. It was mainly women because all the guys would pee outside.
Mm-hmm.
But enough about his high school, because I do love his leadership. I mean, things he said throughout. He's a seeker of knowledge, growth mindset. He was, born to learn and adapt, constant curiosity and drive. What a combination. And then he said his happiness comes from helping others succeed and achieve. And I talked about his spider web philosophy, that every web is unique, every person's unique. So I really like that, as well as I say this all the time, and I know it's commonplace, but people try to do too much via text, email, Slack. Sometimes you just have to talk to someone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I will literally pick up the phone sometimes and this is just to say hello to somebody I haven't talked to in a while. And I start with, hey, no one ever calls anyone anymore. Because sometimes you just have to talk. I don't know. Very interesting. I just think his leadership, and I think he'll be a great CEO for that company.
It was very interesting and a little bit different of an interview than what we've had before. And you're right. He is bound for success. If you start out the way that he started out, and then grow into what he's grown into. He's going to be an amazing CEO of that company, and I wish him all the best. And some of that came from his parents. He talked about his dad had this, what he called, I wrote down, a get it mentality or get it method.
Yeah, get after it or something.
And I thought it was get after it or get it done or something like that. He just said that it was get it. But it was one of those things like he would present a problem to his dad, like, I'm building this wall and I don't understand how to do this wall. And his dad said, well, I think you need to figure it out. And I kind of compared that to my dad, who would not have done it that way. My dad would have sat me down on his knee and explained to me everything about how it's done and why it's done that way and everything like that. But if it works for him and it creates an individual like Rusty was, I think that's amazing. Another thing that I just think is interesting to point out, he talked a lot about being dyslexic.
Yeah.
Talked about the different ways that he's had to compensate for that. We've had other dyslexic or ADHD or those types of people on the podcast before. You kind of wonder, is there something about dyslexia or learning disabilities like that grow CEOs and entrepreneurs? That's essentially who we're interviewing all this time. Or is it just that you're naturally drawn to them and those are the people that get interviewed on Corporate Couch? I'm not too sure which one it is. But it is interesting that it takes away the excuses that some people may have. Well, I can't do X because, I'm dyslexic, so there.
Right.
And Rusty can say, hey, that's not an issue at all. Let me tell you how I fixed that problem. So it was a very interesting interview, kind of unique, but really interesting.
Absolutely. Joe, what's anything going on in your life? What's happening with you?
I read an interesting article today that I want to talk about for a little bit about, do you know that they opened up a restaurant in outer space?
Get out of here.
No, they did. But they had to close it down because the food was great, but there was no atmosphere.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Corporate Couch. If you enjoy the podcast, I would love for you to take 2 minutes out of your day to rate us 5 stars and write a review. Please join me next week to learn from another great leader sharing their professional journey and insights.